Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the South Derbyshire series, a district of Derbyshire which stretches from Leicestershire to Staffordshire, containing 50 civil parishes. Here's one of them for you. Welcome back to South Derbyshire again, folks. It's a beautiful morning in late March. It means spring is in the air. I might soon eventually be able to take this hat off. We'll soon find out. Let's have a walk around this place though, and I might soon warm up. It's too cold to take it off as of yet. This is a place which sometimes has an extra letter added into its name. It's not Egginton, it's Egginton. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Egginton, Ecca's Hill. This week in South Derbyshire we're tackling Egginton, or Ecca's Hill if you will. This is located just to the north and west of the dead straight Roman Road Ryknield Street, better known today as the A38. Vastly residential, Egginton's residents often voice their annoyance about their village's name. Outsiders often unwittingly add an extra G, overpronouncing its name as Egginton instead. Rest assured there are no extra letters in this video, I've done my job properly. Egginton is historically a farming community and there is still a working farm here to this day. However, there isn't much on the whole landmarks wise. The village does have a pretty little church at its southern tip, a school and a village hall which are effectively one and the same thing, but you won't find a lot else. Due to a historical legal situation, no alcohol is allowed to be sold in the village, and that means Egginton has no pub. There are also no shops, nor is there a post office, which means the locals are reliant on places like Hilton and Etwall to get by. North of the village is an airfield, which was established when Darby Airport at Burniston closed. It may be nowhere near as large as its predecessor, but it's still interesting enough to be worth a look. So let's do just that. Time for a walk around another lovely South Derbyshire village. We start on Main Street at the north of the village after parking in William Newton Close. William Newton, who was born in Egginton, became a merchant in London and in 1820 gave the sum of £2,000 to be invested for the poor in the village. After walking around this place, I reckon the money was well spent. Our first landmark is a shelter, which was probably a bus stop at one time. Egginton now has no bus service, but the shelter is still used to display notices and happenings in and around the place. That's the ideal spot then to place a TVI card. Tick it off, people, another one down in South Derbyshire. Egginton is a former estate village. It was all owned by the Every family who lived at Egginton Hall, located to the south of the playing field. The family were royalists, which didn't help the village during the English Civil War. It was on Egginton Common where in 1644 the largest action in Derbyshire during the Civil War took place. It was a skirmish that saw 250 parliamentarian cavalry, returning victorious after the Battle of Newark, rout 600 royalists under the command of Captain Rhodes. They pursued them into the River Dove and the River Trent, and looted the hall in the process. Main Street is where a lot of old worldly features used to be, including a pinfold for stray animals on the corner of Duck Street. Although it's not there any longer, the pinfold housed a German machine gun given to the village as a trophy after the end of World War I. The modern village of Egginton is greatly different to how it would have been a few centuries ago. Most of it was constructed in the mid-18th century or later because the entire village moved from its original location, much further south, closer to the church. That's why the church is well out of the way in this one. Well, so far, not much really to sort of get your teeth into, but now we're on Church Road, and this road bends around to the right down there, and there's a few things of note, including the church, and I believe there's a school down there as well. Might be a few other landmarks of interest too. So, it's all that way, so let's go that way. Church Road is a continuation of the main route through Egginton from north to south. It's now a bit more twisty though, and it snakes its way past Pear Tree Farm. Run by the Ferneyhoff family, this is now the only fully working farm left in the village. There were once plenty more. On the next corner we come to the primary school and the village hall, which are effectively the same thing. The village hall also acts as the war memorial for Egginton. It was built in 1857 as a board school and enlarged in 1891. By 1902, part of it became a parish institute and reading room. After World War I, the entire building was purchased by the village from the Every family as a war memorial. The building is still owned by the village today via a trust, and Derbyshire County Council rent the part of it that's used as the primary school. The building used to have a post office and a shop too, but those closed in 2007. Nowadays, barring the school, Egginton has no facilities of its own. If you live here, you're reliant on the likes of Hilton and Etwall. Egginton also has no pub. That's thanks to a legal situation which prohibits the sale of alcohol anywhere in the village. Another bend in the road brings us to the southernmost tip of the village, and we're heading towards both the church and the old rectory. The latter, which can be seen from the churchyard, was built in 1785 to replace an earlier rectory sited near Egginton Hall. From this churchyard, a footpath once led directly across the fields to Monk's Bridge, a point where the Roman Road Ryknield Street, now the A38, crossed the River Dove. The bridge was built in 1257 by the monks of Burton Monastery. In 1553, 2 of Egginton's church bells were sold to pay for its repairs. The church itself is dedicated to St Wilfrid. Its earliest building work dates from around 1290. It replaced an earlier Norman church, which itself probably replaced an older Saxon church on the same site. This one has some interesting features. For example, on the south wall of the chancel is a rare medieval mass dial. They were often known as scratch dials too. It's on red sandstone some 9 feet to the east of a priest's door and 5 feet above the ground. Such dials are thought to have been in use between the Norman conquest and the coming of mechanical clocks in the 13th century. Behind the church is a little oasis. I'm not wholly sure of what this area is, or perhaps was, but it was very watery. There were some little signboards around the place which offered some inspirational quotes, like this one from Charlie Brown. You might notice too in this watery haven a crinkle-crankle wall which forms the boundary between the churchyard and the old rectory grounds. The shape of the wall was useful because it provided shelter for the growing of fruit trees. After exploring this for a few moments, I opted to head back to the road once again. Okay, so let's move away from the church now, and we're going to head towards the playing field. Now we're also heading in the direction of Egginton Hall as we do that. Let's see if we can check that out and see what that's like. It's a big grand building, I'm led to believe, so let's see if it really is. This is Mabel's Lodge, so named after one Mabel Pendleton who lived here for many years. The house was one of the entrance lodges to Egginton Hall. The current hall is a reincarnation of an original Tudor building. The first hall came into the possession of the Every family in 1623. After a fire in 1736, the hall was rebuilt by Samuel Wyatt. It was then used as a hospital in World War I and then by the Army and the RAF in World War II. Soon after, it fell into disuse and was demolished in 1954. 40 years later, a new hall was built by the Ellis family, classically styled in order to pay homage to its predecessors. Also up here is the playing field with all the usual recreational facilities we've come to expect from one. This one is unique, however. It's named after Catherine Jonathan, who was well known to the locals. Jonathan was the matron at Repton Isolation Hospital and once chairman of Egginton Parish Council. Ashgrove Lane at the north of the village is also related to her. It was for many years known as Matron's Lane in reference to her dwelling. Returning to Church Road, we're following a cycle route now, the number 54, which will take us back to the junction that we met earlier. Dating from around 1800 and known as cherry tree cottages today, these houses were once called Green Row because a small village green was located at the junction of Church Road and Fish Pond Lane. They were built by Sir Henry Every, the 9th Baronet, around the time he was challenged to a duel by Squire Osbaldeston as part of a hunting dispute. He refused Osbaldeston's challenge on principle, as duelling had been made illegal some years earlier. He was apprehensive though about being heckled as a coward by his tenants, so he purposely built the cottages back to front. Lots of houses were estate property. This tall effort is Manor Farmhouse, whose original farm buildings have now been converted into residences. It seems Egginton has a few Canadian expats these days, by the way. This bungalow nearby was proudly flying the maple leaf. Next we come to a modern cul-de-sac called Elmhurst, which was an important name for the Every family. Elmhurst was the title given to the home of the Every estate's agent. This is a dead end, and so too is Dove Grove, whose name is a direct reference to the river, which flows to the west beyond the extent of the estate. This area also features a small paddock which you can walk through. It didn't have much, but there was a nice flower plantation in one corner. With not much more to see there, I continued on around the loop to Duck Street, which will take us all the way back to Main Street. Many trades could once be found in this part of the village. You'll notice as you amble down here an old forge close, which is located close to the site of an old blacksmith shop. The adjacent building, Plum Tree Farm, also had a wheelwright. Blacksmith's Lane off to the left once had a butcher's shop too. The road then starts to turn and you're greeted at this point with some early spring blossoms, which I couldn't resist capturing. The buildings you then pass on the left belong to the former Oak Tree Farm. These are believed to date from 1717, predating the relocation of the village. Across the road to the right is the primitive Methodist chapel built in 1894 and now a private home. This is close to a white house called Woodbine Cottage, which was once 4 dwellings. Between the two, there was once a small caretaker's cottage. It's all houses now, so here's a small montage to end the main walk with. Okay, and at the end of Duck Street, it's a left turn back up to William Newton Close, and that is the complete circuit of Egginton Village. However, we're not quite finished with this one just yet, because to the north of the village there's an old airport, an old airfield, which is actually still in use. It's Darby Airport. Let's go and have a look at that to finish. Northwest of Egginton is a small airfield that houses a community of light aircraft owners, an aero club, and supporting aircraft maintenance firms. This was established when Burnaston Airport near Darby closed in order to make way for a big business. Stay tuned for the Burnaston episode in a few weeks to learn what the old airport became. With the airport code EGBD, Darby Airfield is owned and run by the Jones family and is the Civil Aviation Authority's only licensed aerodrome in Derbyshire. The airfield's licence allows flying instruction, but at present does not allow any usage after dark. All 3 runways are grass and quite short, the longest being only 594 metres. All 3 runways also have some obstacles at the approach threshold, namely tall trees or electricity cables, considered factors which add to the challenge of flying to and from here. Numerous private aircraft are also based on site, with many more visiting for maintenance services. Now, the airfield should have been the last part of this episode, but a closed road meant I had to double back towards the village. This allowed me the opportunity to catch Longdon Park School. This provides education for children between the ages of 7 and 16 who have been diagnosed with autism or demonstrate behaviours associated with it. And the road closure also meant I had to cross the railway line in a different place to where I originally intended to as well. This is the Darby to Crewe line, which we've met before, and we'll meet again soon enough in the next episode. Join me for that in a few days' time as we continue our trip around South Derbyshire. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.